Hello, my very good friends. Our country, Tanzania, is becoming one of the leading nations in Africa. And as we go through the leadership that we have just embarked on, we must now concentrate our energy into things that matter. And one of those things is mentorship. It is impossible to become a leading nation without having leading citizens. You must have citizens that have power to lead, and they really and truly understand their potential, and they are focused in developing it and executing it. So the number one question we must ask ourselves as Tanzanians is, how far and how quickly must we develop the human resource we have in our nation? My friends, we have four basic institutions in our country. And through this institution, we can develop our people and have a very successful country. The number one institution is a family. A family must offer an environment for human development. At this stage, it must be a child's development. So, if you have a family and you're listening to me today, the question you should ask yourself is, what are you doing towards the development of your child? The development of this child's potential, this child's intelligence, this child's smartness. The question is, are you doing enough towards the developing of a whole person of your child? So I'm challenging you today that in a family, you must have an environment which cultivates the ability of children. Secondly, the institution that comes next is schools. In our primary and secondary school, we must rethink. Most of the times I ask myself, what is our definition of education? How do we define secondary and primary schools? What do we really need our children to get out of these schools? We must begin thinking newly again on what we really want schools to produce. Because if we don't define, if we don't intentionally say what we want children to get out of school, we might have students who are successfully in their studies, but they have never realized their potential. And the bad thing of it is that once you're successful in your studies, but you don't know your potential, you will always be a wasted potential. Now, school must be a second environment for the growth of the potential of our people. Once we take people to school, in my country, Tanzania, we pay for people's school fees. The question should not be, do they know how to read and write? The question should be, is this an environment which develops our people? Do we develop the sense of discovery? Do our people become, creative? Are we enhancing their power to become great doctors, to become influential people in the world? What are we doing with our people in our secondary schools? So the second area which we must focus, and we of course have an extended discussion on this, is our schools, our primary and secondary schools. The third institution which we must look at in a very careful way is universities. I have been in a university myself, and I have experienced the highest level of the absence of mentorship. In our universities, we are not really concerned, many of our lecturers are not concerned with the development of the excellent professionals. Most of them are highly concerned with attending classes, teaching lectures, and marking exams. But they are very less concerned with the development of a person. And I am very, concerned with the fact that most of the teachers and most of the lecturers are not concerned with the potential of the people. And most of them actually do that to protect their position of lecturehood. So there is an issue we have to deal with. But a university has to turn into an environment of learning and improvement. It is necessary, therefore, we ask ourselves questions. With all the universities we have in our country, Tanzania, how much are we developing our students in those universities? I am normally perturbed with this issue. Why don't we have, an environment where students not only become successful, but they also learn of what they can do to the country? It is because of the nature of the schooling system. So we must begin understanding and rearranging and deciding to use our universities in a very well way. Fourthly, the fourth institution is workplaces. Already in the workplaces, we have activities like human resource management, so people are developed. But it is necessary to understand that we must have a culture of developing and advancing people, not only to be good to the institution, but to discover their potential. Some of the people we have in the workplaces are not meant to be permanent workers. Some of them ought to be released into their own workplaces. But the problem is we are so much concerned with fixing people into our workplaces that we don't want to release them. So it is very important that as we get through this discussion of mentorship, you have in your mind all these institutions, the family, the schools, the universities, and the workplaces. These are important institutions that if our country Tanzania effectively utilizes, we can have a very effective person and therefore have a very effective nation. I'm inviting you to these discussions, and this was just a first day. Welcome and be with us.